Hi, ladies and gentlemen. I just wanted to finish and complete, or actually start and then complete a lecture because I don't really want us getting too far behind. And so I wanted to go through one lecture with you via this type of um, presentation. So um, we're going to pick up where we left off yesterday, and that was more on terms of what is law, and we looked at a couple of different things regarding what does society look like when there are no laws, how we have vague laws, and I think we covered vague laws quite clearly, even though they were vague when we talked about the Little Falls case, and how not everybody interprets the law the same way, and some people think there should be special treatment um, for them for whatever reasons there are. So, taking off of this slide, I want to move forward to this particular lecture where we talk about the purpose of law. Now, we kind of talked about already um, that human beings just don't always make the right choices, and therefore we have to have laws that control our behavior. We talked about manners, rules, and laws, and all of them were about controlling behavior. But when we talk about laws, we're talking about control behavior by the government. The government makes the decisions that what should be common sense isn't always common sense to everyone. And so they create laws so that we can live essentially without worries that we're going to be harmed or our things are going to be taken because um, human beings are competitive and it's not always about what we need. We seem to think that it goes beyond that and what we want. And so we're going to talk about the different ways in which government creates laws in different areas where laws are created. And if you look at this list, you should see a common trend here: protect, protect, and protect. And there's actually one more down here dealing with protect. So essentially, if we want to ask what is the purpose of law, it is to protect us. But our government goes and does one more step up on this, and they say there are different areas in which we need to have protection. And so, what I want to do right now is just go through this first one. We have laws that are there to protect individuals, not only from each other, although those are very important. We even have laws that protect us from our own behaviors to ourselves. And so, what I want to do is, I just want to look at a quick slide on what some of those laws are that help us be safe and protected from individuals, or us as individuals being protected from others. And so, obviously, the ones that come to mind, and I'm hoping that you write these down as we go through this. You've got the assault here, you've got the homicide over here, manslaughter. We've already seen that with the Kim Potter case. We have robbery here. These are laws that protect us from other individuals. Going down a little bit. This is a hard one to get a picture of, but when we start looking at sexual assault, we have laws that protect us from that. We have a whole set of laws, both federal and state, dealing with kidnapping and abduction. One we don't have on here that is a whole section in Minnesota law is about child protection and negligence and abuse where children are concerned. We have laws that are there to protect individuals with disabilities from a multitude of ways in which people can, or government or institutions can create laws that actually affect people with disabilities. And if I continue to go down, we start to look at other laws and we start to look at things that are out there that protect us from decisions we make as individuals. Something as simple as a seatbelt. That law is created to protect us against our own bad judgments in not wearing a seatbelt. And so now in Minnesota, it is a primary offense. You can be stopped by police for not having your seatbelt on. It used to be a secondary offense that if they pulled you over and you didn't have your seatbelt on, they could additionally fine you for not having your seatbelt on. But Minnesota changed that law quite a few years ago that if you're don't have a seatbelt on, police can use that as a primary offense to pull you over. And so just the studies and the statistics that show we are much safer with seatbelts on. It affects insurance rate. It affects not only insurance for cars, but health insurance. So there's a lot of different reasons why the government said we're going to actually make it a primary offense. We look at issues of alcohol and tobacco, and we can even throw the drugs into this one, and studies showing that we're much healthier, and that affects our health insurance, and it affects hospitals and our whole medical side when we start looking at how people make decisions based on some of these substances that actually cause harm to us, that have a domino effect. And then, of course, we have the gun laws out there, not only to protect us from others who have guns, but also from our own misjudgments possibly in having those guns. And we see laws that deal with having them in lock boxes, having trigger locks on these around children. And so these laws are out there not only just to protect us from other people, but truly as a means of protecting us against ourselves. So that in itself is one of the purposes for laws, is to protect us against individuals so that we control our behavior. The second category under this, and again, I'm pulling these along because it's protecting and it's protecting. If we're protecting individuals from others or individuals from self, we also have the whole section of laws that deal with protecting property. And so when we look at what laws are out there in protecting property, that just gets to be a whole new set of laws out there. So we have obviously the protection of property against arson. We've got trespassing laws. We have burglary laws. We have vandalism. We have shoplifting or just simple theft. We've got laws that protect us from our property in terms of things we own, money, just our own finances from being extorted by somebody. You have to pay me so I don't tell others about this particular incident. So again, when we're going back to the slide, we look at that laws, that if we don't have the laws, I think sometimes it's easier to ask, what would life look like without them? We start to see that behavior is controlled, because without it, we really truly don't have property protected. So those are two key areas in which government feels the need that we need to have behavior being controlled to protect us against ourselves and other individuals, but also to protect what we own and what we have in possession. The third one that I want to go through today is the protection of institutions. Now, this one gets a little bit more confusing because we don't necessarily think of these laws on a daily basis, things that protect ideas of society that are important to us in moving our society forward. So if we look at a couple of those, we see that there are laws out there on a lot of different fronts. So this first one here, when we're looking at this whole institution of government, I mean, I just put that picture there for presidents because there are laws that literally protect just that individual. You can't threaten the president, whether it be verbal or in a written form or however. Several years ago, a high school student at Sauk Rapids High School made a decision to send an email to the White House. And this was not, when I say it years ago, I'm not talking recent, because this was new to the emails and the use of the internet to send these messages. And so this kid, who was pretty tech savvy, sends this death threat to the president. And honestly, I can't even remember who the president was. And again, this was Sauk Rapids. This was up by St. Cloud. And within that same school day, Secret Service showed up at the high school. And they asked to see this student. And this student was called down, and he was like, well, that was a joke. well, I hate to say this, but Secret Service are not, um, how would I want to put it, funny guys, and that they didn't find any humor in that. And threatening the president, even in a verbal threat, is a federal offense. And so we look at laws that protect the chief executive specifically. Not only that, but members of Congress and members of the courts are protected. Threatening a judge is illegal when we look at the courts as an institution. The second one I have here is just the institution of separation of church and state. The idea that religion is the whole concept of religion being an institution, and that people have a choice of which faith to practice, and that our government can't step in and say, no, you have to follow a specific religion. In the United States, we don't have that. We do have laws that certain religious practices um, are not allowed, and that goes back to protecting us as individuals. But just the idea that the institution of religion is protected by law, in that people can choose to be a part of a faith of their choice, but they also have the choice to not be part of any of it. We look at this one, we got the institution of democracy, the whole idea that our elections are protected, our voting is protected. And I think this last election in 2020 has put a lot of pressure on revisiting some of these laws, and are they there to protect us as voters? And if the voters, whether they're majority or the minority of the results, don't like the results, do they have a right to challenge those results? And it all goes back to the laws of democracy in the 50 states and the federal government. Another institution that you should probably see and understand is the institution of education. The idea that our government believes that an educated community is necessary, and that the laws, whether they be federal or state, that you have an education and it be a free education, and that it be equal to females and males alike, is laws that we don't even consider on a daily basis as protecting the institution of education. And again, even though we don't consider them on a daily basis, they're there protecting us. The institution of banking, the laws that are out there that are protecting the financial securities in the United States are incredible. And again, these aren't things we think about on a daily basis, but I'll tell you, if something happened, that the money we have in our savings accounts, something happened to that money, we would be looking at, how did that happen? Is there no recourse? Can we not, is there not some law that was violated, and that our money is no longer there? The one that a lot of you probably see or hear if you go to the doctors is this HIPAA, this privacy of your health information, and that your health information can't just be provided to whomever asks for a certain information on your health history, that it's protected and your privacy is protected. So that's a whole nother institution we don't even consider. And then the whole idea of equality and the right of people to be on an even playing field, the civil rights movements. And the civil rights movements have changed over the years. We look at the 1920s, equal rights for the genders. We get into the 50s, 60s, and even today, the rights based on different racial groups. And we're getting into the rights based on disabilities and the rights based on sexual identity. All of those things are part of the institution of civil rights. And so I'm hoping that with your notes, you were able to get down these institutions, the government, our religion, our elections, our financial security, education, medicine, civil rights, civil liberties that are out there. These are all things that are protected by the law that I'm certain, because in teaching it, I don't even think about it on a daily basis. So we go back and we look at laws, life without laws and rules. I'm telling you, they're protecting us, and we don't even know that they're out there protecting us. So we have the laws that protect us as individuals, our property, institutions that we come to rely on. I mean, just the whole idea that we have an economy that allows us to purchase items, that we have the ability to question what our government does is an institution under the whole idea of freedom of speech. Things, again, that we never consider, but there are laws regarding these issues, and without them, we're back in the purge. I mean, nobody is safe, no property is safe. The whole idea of a society isn't safe. And so the whole idea of institutions being protected is really something we need to be very, very aware of. I think that's probably the best way I can put this. And the last one I want to talk about is this protection of values. And again, this may not again be something we've ever considered, is that the laws are there to protect our values and what we hold as important, things that are not tangible. And I think privacy is one that falls into this. But I just want to quickly look at a couple of very important ones that we have come to know over the years, is the whole issue of marriage. Over the years, the value of having a relationship legally with someone else has been challenged. And in addition to the whole idea of marriage comes the whole issue of divorce. And then we get into family law and we get into custody battles. And so I'm going to put this on there so that you guys can have this, but it was in 2015 when the Supreme Court ruled, and I'm going to put the name of the case up here because I really do think it's important that students know the name of this case. Obergefell, oops, I gotta get one more in there, boy, am I having trouble today, versus Hodges. So the 2015 Supreme Court case of Obergefell versus Hodges is the case that decided that it is a right in the United States to get married. And when two people of the same gender are denied that right under civil rights, under due process of law, under equal protection of law, there is a constitutional violation. And so 2015 is the point where the Supreme Court came back and said every state needs to recognize marriages that are of the same gender. And so that issue, even today, we have politicians who want to see this case overturned. The capital punishment case, the idea that not every state believes that execution of an inmate is a correct form of punishment, and that we have states that are quite literally fighting to either get it back in the state or get it abolished in the state. And if we go back in Minnesota history, Minnesota hasn't had the death penalty since 1911, I believe, 100 years, or now more than, well, it will be 101 years ago. We had a bad execution, and Minnesota's form of capital punishment was a hanging, and it didn't go as it was supposed to go, and our state legislature basically said, if it can't be done right, we're not doing it at all. And so that actually brings in the issue of human rights. As a human being, Is that a proper form of punishment? And when you look at capital punishment as a form of government um, consequence for a crime, the United States, in allowing the capital punishment, whether it is a lethal injection, gas chamber, electrocution, hanging, or the firing squad. I mean, those are the five that are still allowed in the United States that the Supreme Court has not ruled as unconstitutional. One of the questions that comes up is, does that violate the whole idea of human rights, the whole value of being a human being and not having the government decide to take one's life? Which then brings up this whole other topic, and we see that still being debated. In fact, it's in front of the Supreme Court right now, is the issue of abortion. And there's a couple things that I'm going to require that you know about this topic as well. In 1973, and that's not going to work when I type that, in 1973, in the case of Roe v. Wade, the Supreme Court ruled that states, and let me just type this out for you so that you can make sure that you have this in your notes. States cannot restrict, you can see my problem here, a woman cannot restrict a woman from choosing to terminate a pregnancy. And that's, yeah, you can see that I'm having trouble typing here, up until what they call viability. And what that basically said is that if the fetus can live outside the mother, that is considered viability. And so that a state couldn't restrict a woman up beyond that or before that point. And so what was generally understood, and I'll pull this back out here so we can kind of peek at what this is saying, as of September of 2021, most states had it at that 2022 week, where viability being that could a fetus survive? With medical advancements, it is getting better. And so what they're saying is there are some states that are actually backing that up. And Texas is the big state. The state of Texas is the Supreme Court is addressing that issue, and so is the case coming out of Mississippi. And so these two states are Mississippi is looking at 15 weeks. Anything after 15 weeks, a woman cannot make that choice. And Texas has even gone so far as to say 6 weeks. And so we're seeing the Supreme Court right now having to make a decision. Do they uphold the 1973 decision, or do they uphold the state's decision to back that up by so many weeks? And so, again, these are major issues that we have right now that our Supreme Court is trying to address. So the last one I want to talk about is this death with dignity. And this is one that's coming up in different places in the United States. And sometimes we see this one, I can't even spell today. Euthanasia is, or they will have it identified as doctor-assisted suicide. This is when we're talking about a terminally ill patient, someone who has a disease that has no cure, and they know that without a cure that they will eventually die from the disease. And some of these are ALS. ALS is known as Lou Gehrig's disease. That is a terminal illness. There are many different forms of cancer that after certain stages, there's no way or no treatment to that's going to it's all it's going to do is prolong the life. It's not going to save someone's life. And so these are diseases where the doctors can't cure it. And the patient, it is a patient decided process. I don't want to say procedure because I don't think that's right. Where the patient actually makes the legal decision to terminate their life on their terms rather than that of the diseases. And so more states are going with this. And if you look on the back board, I actually have states identified, and they actually don't call it euthanasia or doctor-assisted suicide. They're called death with dignity laws. And what I want to do is I want to actually show you a video, and I think that's how she's, I don't know, I may be wrong. Brittany Maynard was the woman who really put a face to this issue and really brought it to the forefront of why she believed she should have the right to terminate her life because of cancer, and why she was not, and no one's going to say happy about it, but pleased that the state of Oregon gave her that choice. And so before I show that video, I just want to go back and make sure that we have all 4 of these down, and we can move forward and know that the purpose of laws, again, is protect, protect, protect. And we'll move that one. Okay, maybe that won't work so well. Protect again. And when we talk about values, the values we're talking about is marriages and divorces, and we're talking about the death penalty and abortion, and we get into this death with dignity. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the sub if she would play the video. In fact, I think I might actually have it here.
The thoughts that go through your mind when you find out you have so little time is everything that you need to say to everyone that you love.
So I will ask the sub to continue this video for you. She found out she had terminal brain cancer and that there was nothing that was going to cure the disease she had. And so I want to give you a chance to see what this is and be able to understand that this is another category of law that's happening. And I can certainly check death with dignity states, and I don't know how many states have this now. And we can see that there are quite a bit on the West Coast and a couple on the East Coast. And what I think is important to know about this is that it's not as if you can just go to that state and make that decision. There are so many legal obstacles that go with this, that there has to be multiple mental health assessments. There has to be legal information. It's quite extensive. And what they find is that there are a lot of people who go start the process, and they are actually, the illness actually cuts their life short before they can actually make this decision. So again, the blue are the ones that are allowing this, considering I don't think Minnesota is going to see that for a very long time. So I will end this and have the sub continue the video for you. Thank you.